More shortfalls at City Hall as the latest budget variance figures are released. Police remain tight-lipped on their latest homicide investigation. And more progress in the Thunder Bay-Nipigon four-laning project. Good evening and thank you for joining us. A long, snowy winter and several high-profile legal cases are having a negative impact on this year's Thunder Bay budget.
Council will receive a midway point update on this year's current financial situation Monday. And as Dennis Ward reports, right now the shortfall is nearly $2.5 million.
The largest budget overrun at this time is with infrastructure and operations with a $1.6 million deficit. That's almost completely attributed to winter road maintenance during a winter that never seemed to end. The city will dip into a reserve fund set up for seasons like the one we had to absorb the shortfall and keep their fingers crossed for less snow later this year. The other big overrun of more than $400,000 is in legal services, where some complex issues are being handled.
We have the inquest in terms of the deaths. We have the flood, the class action and everything else around that. The resolute assessment, that even though it may not be considered a legal file, we do have lawyers involved in that.
Not included in the upcoming report is the recent Firefighters Arbitration Award. The city manager says money had been tucked away in anticipation, but not enough. Still, Commisso believes it will be manageable this year. He will also update council on budget savings found this year through a corporate review process. Almost $6 million, including $1.5 million this year, has been identified in savings.
We did that last year, we'll do it this year, and then we'll also do it next year. And then really I think it's up to the new council in 2015 to decide whether they want to keep doing that. The challenge every year is it gets more difficult to find those savings without impacting services.
In another effort to find savings, council will continue to meet behind closed doors about possible businesses to get out of or services that can be cut. Dennis Ward, TVT News.
Thunder Bay Police remain tight-lipped regarding the murder investigation of a woman on the city's north side. Police say they are following up on several tips as the investigation continues. Shannon Ashley Marie Hogan was the victim of what police are calling a very violent homicide a little over a week ago behind a residence on Lake Street. Since the incident, police say as many as 20 tips are being followed up on. A postmortem has been completed, but the cause of death is being withheld. Investigators aren't releasing the information, calling it crucial evidence. Police spokesperson Chris Adams says they have yet to uncover a motive, but circumstances surrounding the crime are becoming clearer.
We do have a pretty good indication of most of what was going on leading up to it, but obviously what exactly led to this very violent homicide, that still remains under investigation. There was evidence collected at the scene that's still being examined.
Adams reminds people to be conscious of their surroundings when out at night and to walk in well-lit areas. Meanwhile, a special tip line remains in effect. You can call 684-1330 or Crime Stoppers.
A former employee of Mac's convenience stores is speaking out in hopes of changing things at the local outlets. This comes on the heels of a most recent robbery where a clerk had a knife held to his throat. Kyla Turner feels Mac's is failing to take reasonable precautions for the protection of their employees. Tara Allaire reports.
Kyla Turner was an employee at Mac's about a decade ago, working alternating midnight shifts with her brother.
I was scared every night that I went into work that I was going to be killed. And my brother was actually chased by an attacker wielding a knife, screaming, "Do you want to die?" when he was on his shift.
Since then, she feels the ongoing workplace violence could be prevented before an employee is injured or killed. Turner's solution is a solid barrier or partition around the register for the employee to retreat to when customers enter the store.
If there's no barrier, the perpetrator can hold a knife to the employee's throat, and that's going to keep happening, and someone's going to die. It will happen eventually, and I don't want, the labor law to be changed after someone's paid in blood to change it. I want it changed before that happens.
Turner says a buzzer barrier system would allow employees to safely move about the store to do their work late at night while still attending to customers.
You have the door locked at 11 o'clock, and when somebody wants to get into the store, they ring a bell to notify you that they're at the door. the employee moves behind a barrier and then locks themselves in safely. And it has to be a solid barrier. I'm not not just a little window, but a properly installed barrier. And then buzzes to open the door. And the customer comes in and browses and makes a purchase at the window. And there's never any contact between the customer and the employee.
She adds the door would remain unlocked as the customer browses the store, allowing them to freely leave the premises. If threatened at any time, the employee would call 911. Turner says a small investment for installation, policy review, and training are reasonable when weighed against the serious threat of injury, death, and psychological trauma employees face. Officials from Max were not available for comment. Tara Allaire, TBT News.
A former investment advisor in Thunder Bay has been ordered to pay a $200,000 fine as a penalty for her mishandling of clients' funds. Pirko Ann Ramsey was an employee of CIBC at the time of the violations in 2009 and 2010. In addition, she's also been ordered to pay $36,000 in costs. The decisions were a result of a hearing by the Investment Industry Regulatory Organization, which was held back in May. It found that Ramsey was liable for conduct unbecoming by borrowing money from clients and misappropriating money from clients. She was also cited for her failure to cooperate with the regulatory investigation.
Area drivers got their first look today at another completed section of 4-lane highway between Thunder Bay and Nipigon. The 14-kilometer stretch from west of Mackenzie Station Road to Birch Beach Road was open to traffic for the first time. There's still a lot of construction to take place before the total 104-kilometer stretch is completely 4-laned. But as Matt Scooby reports, there's a renewed sense of accomplishment for those involved.
There it is. That's so cool.
After 3 years and $62 million, another 4-lane section of Highway 1117 has been successfully completed, much to the delight of people on hand at the official opening. But no one was more excited than Minister of Northern Development and Mines, Michael Gravel.
Obviously a dream project. When I first got elected in 1995, I began talking about how I felt we deserved to have a 4-lane highway between Thunder Bay and Nipigon, and indeed that dream is coming true.
This section is the second of 13 that will make up the entire stretch from Thunder Bay to Nipigon. Gravel says the purpose is twofold.
The safety factor is really the big one. There's no question that 4-lane highways are safer. They certainly flow the traffic more safely, and that's important. And from an economic point of view, it helps move our goods and services better. It makes it more attractive for people to come through Thunder Bay and obviously parts of Northern Ontario.
Regional Commander of the Northwest Region for the OPP, Ron Van Stralen, agrees with the safety part, especially when it comes to dealing with accidents.
With the 2-lane highway, it's very difficult, especially in Northern Ontario, to get people rerouted. So you get a lot of people waiting, frustration, and dangerous situations. So when you're talking about a stretch of highway like this, it's a real boon to us in particular to be able to facilitate the flow of traffic and make sure that people get to where they got to get in a safe manner.
Gus Chiarello is a senior operations manager for Bott Construction, the company who built the new section of highway. He says it's been a lot of work, but they're proud to be finished, and they couldn't have done it without the help of residents along the way.
We came in here, we had issues with access. We couldn't access because the highway's in the back, the old highway's down further. People gave us, let us use their property to access the property, to access our work site, which made it a lot easier for us. They've been great.
Bott Construction has also begun the expansion of the Nipigon River Bridge, another 13-kilometer section of 4-laning between Highway 527 and Mackenzie is expected to be complete by 2015. Gravel also announced that $513 million will be invested into the Northern Highways program for the 2013-2014 construction season. 29 of those projects are in northwestern Ontario. Matt Scooby, TBT News.
Some big changes are coming to Thunder Bay Community Bingo. The Bingo Hall operator has worked out a deal with Ontario Lottery and Gaming to create a new electronic gaming center. The Bingo Hall is currently located on the CLE grounds. It raised over $1 million for its 69-member charities last year. But a steady decline in players is threatening the operation. The Hall's manager will appear before City Council Monday night seeking permission for a new long-term agreement with OLG. Changes would see the traditional paper games complemented by electronic games to renew interest and attract new players. The plan would not involve slot machines, and OLG would manage the electronic games. Charity volunteers would no longer handle money at the hall, and charities will only need 2 volunteers at each event rather than 6 or 8. Profits would be split 4 ways, 25% for the charities, 25% for OLG, 47% for the hall operator, and 3% that would go to city coffers. Now, if approved, the new bingo hall would open its doors in March of next year, and renovations would need to get underway soon. Unconfirmed reports say that the gaming center would be located inside the nightclub property attached to the Super 8 Motel on Memorial Avenue.
A large infusion of money will be coming from the provincial government to improve Ontario's firefighting facilities. $47 million will be handed down in total, with almost $10 million going towards a new fire attack base in Armstrong. At a news conference today, it was announced that the aging Armstrong base will be the recipient of new infrastructure. The quarters will be upgraded to accommodate 20 extra staff, and a new helipad will be added as well. Other additions will include a new warehouse and backup generator. Sudbury will be receiving $25 million for firefighting infrastructure and renovations to its management center. Just over $12 million will be going to Haliburton to build new fire management headquarters. Response and Operations Manager Dave Cleveley says the upgrades to the Armstrong base are greatly needed.
So Armstrong has always been a very strategic location. The facilities that are presently there are 50 years old or more. They're old, they're decrepit. It's costing us a lot of money to keep them up and keep them up to today's safety standards.
This is really about making sure that there are the facilities in place that allow them to respond and in the way that they need to, and also to be able to provide the kind of accommodations they need to be able to do that, and the kind of equipment that they need to be able to do it as well.
Construction at the Armstrong base is expected to begin within the next couple of weeks. Completion of the project is slated for fall next year.
A former manager at the Algo Center Mall is accusing its owner of being an unethical, slave-driving employer and a sleazy landlord at a public inquiry in Elliott Lake. In a resignation letter, Henri Leroux laid out numerous grounds for quitting 1 year before the mall's roof caved in, killing 2 women. Those grounds included Leroux's complaints that she was on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and received no extra money when called in. Mall owner Bob Nazarian said his former employee was dishonest and that he was an honorable businessman, after Leroux testified that Nazarian had ordered her to break into a tenant's store and change the locks.
Finding a home for 2 pieces of Thunder Bay's history may lead to the creation of a new museum. The city's plan to amalgamate transit with Hagee means 2 restored Brill buses are in need of a new home. Now a new group has been created to start a dialogue in the community on what to do with them. Buddies of Brill has been launched online. The website and its creators are looking for stories, artifacts, and donations. The Brill buses have a long history in Thunder Bay. The transit union's goal for the trolleys has always been to have them on display so people can get on the buses. Former transit union president Charlie Brown says stepping aboard is like taking a trip back in time. Brown has a broader plan for the Brills. He sees them as the cornerstone of a new transportation museum.
That would incorporate all of Thunder Bay's transit history, since we have an extremely rich history, as you know. We're the first municipality-owned transit system in Canada, 1892, as well as the history end of it, from the manufacturing end. The Brills, they were made here, as I said, at the Canadian Car Foundry after the Second World War. When the Brills were manufactured, it actually saved that plant and about 1,500 jobs.
Brown says he'll come back to council in the fall with possible locations for the Brills to be stored. The city plans to move them around within the transit headquarters until a new indoor location is found for them.
Hopefully those buses have some good heating. Cold out there today, Fiona, as well as some gray skies and some showers as well.
Yeah, and things are not looking much better for next month. This was a very disappointing month for a lot of folks in Thunder Bay, and today is a good example of why there's a lot of grumbling going on. We topped out at a high of 14. Unfortunately, that was about 1 a.m. in the morning, and temperatures have been steadily dropping ever since. In fact, they hit a low of 9 Celsius over the last few hours, and that's with some gusty winds at times, up to 35 kilometers per hour from the north-northeast. So off the lake, that definitely added to that chill factor. But we're not alone in our shivering. We've got cool temperatures all the way to the west. Fort Frances is currently at 12, 11 in Atikokan, 8 in Upsala and Armstrong and Greenstone. They're also at 8 with some showers. Sault Ste. Marie is not doing as badly. They're at 17 Celsius under partly cloudy skies. Unfortunately, they're also under a rainfall warning. They could see some pretty heavy rain overnight tonight and into tomorrow, up to 50 millimeters. Now, if you are going to risk that cold air out there, head out to the Border Cats game and give it another shot. Well, there is risk of showers once again tonight, and about 11 Celsius at 7 o'clock when the game begins. So you want to dress warm and you want to dress dry. And unfortunately, that rain will continue overnight. Anywhere from 10 to 20 millimeters is expected by morning. And temperatures are going to dip down to about 8 Celsius, similar to what we saw last night at times. Winds are going to continue to be gusty at about 32 kilometers per hour. It should taper off to about 17, but it's not going to add a whole lot of comfort to your evening. And as we head into Saturday, low pressure center continues to move very slowly over the Great Lakes. Not quite stalled, but it is shifting slowly. So we've got at least another day of rain because we're just on the tail end of this system. As it slowly moves out, there is some drier air behind it. Unfortunately, it's cool, dry air. I'll have more details on what that's going to mean not only for this weekend, but next month. And it's not necessarily the best news. That's later on in the news hour.
Okay, thank you, Fiona. The man at the center of a horrific kidnap and sexual abuse case in Cleveland, Ohio, has cut a deal with the prosecution. We'll have details on that story and more as your Friday News Hour continues.
Castro, upon entering this plea, will never be released from prison.
The Cleveland man accused of holding 3 women captive in his home for a decade has avoided the death penalty.
Ariel Castro has accepted a plea deal that sentences him to life in prison with no chance of parole. The 52-year-old had been charged with 977 separate counts for kidnapping 3 women aged 14, 16, and 20 between 2002 and 2004. Keith Bogue has more.
This was a more relaxed, less fidgety Ariel Castro than we've seen previously. At times, the 53-year-old seemed more like a bank client discussing the details of his mortgage than a kidnapper and rapist reviewing the terms under which he'll spend the rest of his life in prison.
And have you had a chance to read this document?
Yesterday I did, and this morning I did also.
The sentence proposed is life followed by an additional 1,000 years in prison. Time and time again, Judge Michael Russo asked Castro to confirm he understood. It means he'll never be eligible for parole.
Do you understand, Mr. Castro, that upon entering this plea, you will never be released from prison?
Castro said he understood and that he isn't surprised.
I knew I was going to get pretty much the book thrown at me.
Castro's horrible crimes were uncovered in May when one of the women he had kidnapped and held prisoner for years was able to escape from Castro's home in a rundown section of Cleveland, Ohio. The horrific tale that unfolded involved 3 young women who'd been kidnapped separately beginning in 2002. They'd been held captive, raped, and one, Amanda Berry, now 27, had given birth to a daughter fathered by Castro. That girl is now 6 years old.
I want to thank everyone who has helped me and my family.
The women have stayed out of the public eye since their escape and rescue. But a couple of weeks ago, they released a video to say they were all right.
I may have been through hell and back, but I am strong enough to walk through hell with a smile on my face.
Mr. Castro,
the women were required to approve the plea deal agreed to by Castro and the prosecution. It means they won't have to relive their ordeal in court. They would have been the key prosecution witnesses had there been a trial. Castro will be back in court again next week to hear whether the judge accepts the recommended sentence. And the women he kidnapped will have their opportunity to say something either in person or through video link. The prosecution says that one way or another they will have something to say. Keith Bogue, CBC News, Washington.
We have more now on that horrifying Spanish train wreck that killed at least 78 people. The engineer has been detained by police while investigators analyze the locomotive's black box. Susan Ormanston reports.
The mangled cars of a speeding train are removed off the tracks and out of sight. But the horror won't go away easily. Families are called to identify relatives. Dozens are still in hospital, many of them in critical condition. At the site, people leave mementos, each one asking a similar question. Why was the train speeding into such a sharp curve? Elena Regaro was a passenger.
The train started going really, really fast, and all the luggages fell. And then the next thing I remember, I was covered by seats and luggage and bodies, and my leg was trapped.
The investigation is zeroing in on driver Francisco Jose Garzon, now detained in hospital. He apparently admitted he effed it up and said he wants to die. But Spanish press is reporting he had boasted of high-speed driving on Facebook, posting pictures of a train speedometer at 200 kilometers per hour. The page is now blocked. The train's black boxes will confirm how fast it took the curve, a reported 190 kilometers an hour in an 80 zone. You can see how the middle cars buckle before the front cars crash. An excessive speed signal may have warned the driver. It's unclear why he didn't brake. The track is also in question, part of it laid in the 1970s and not upgraded for high-speed trains. Spain has had a good rail safety record. As the line begins to reopen, investigators will dig into both technical and human error. Susan Ormanston, CBC News, London.
A Canadian man jailed in Mauritania for alleged terror links has just arrived back in this country. Aaron Yoon had served 18 months behind bars. Adrian Arsenault has the latest.
Well, Aaron Yoon is now officially back in Canada, but I would not say that he is free and relaxing at home. He took a bit of a circuitous route out of Mauritania, escorted out of the country by counterterrorism officials, and then after a number of flights, ended up in Toronto this afternoon aboard an Air Canada flight. Now, sources on board that plane are telling us that once it landed, all the passengers were instructed to stay seated with their seatbelts on, and then a car pulled up to the plane. The source says that RCMP officers got out of the car, boarded the plane, took Aaron Yoon off it, and that was the last they saw of him. So lots of questions here. Has he been arrested? Is this a detention? Is he being charged? Do they simply want to question him further? All indications we have been given up to this point is that charges are possible, but unlikely, because there would have to be extraordinarily compelling evidence for police here to charge Aaron Yoon. And the problem with evidence is that he's coming from a country where he was jailed for 18 months on the basis of a confession that he maintains was obtained under torture. So that evidence is necessarily tainted. There is a lot, though, that police want and need to learn from Aaron Yoon. Does he know who radicalized his two friends, Ali Medlej and Chris Katsarubas? And is that person, or are those people still in Canada? Are they still in London, Ontario? Do they pose a danger to Canadians? Does Aaron Yoon pose a danger to Canadians? The police need to establish that as quickly as possible. They will want to talk with him for as long as possible. Adrienne Arsenault, CBC News, Toronto.
Winnipeg police sent divers into the Assiniboine River today, looking for the mother of two murdered children who may have taken her own life. Cameron McIntosh reports.
A makeshift memorial outside the home of two dead children and their missing mother. A story that has gripped this neighborhood and this city.
It's just a very sad thing to happen. It's sad when it happens anywhere, but when it's so close to home.
The mother of the children, Lisa Gibson, was the last to see them and has been missing since Wednesday. Shortly after a 911 call, police found the two kids, a baby boy and an infant girl, reportedly in a bathtub in critical condition. They died later. Now, the search for her is focusing on a river adjacent to their home.
It's incumbent upon us to, to explore all avenues in our search. And again, I can't reiterate enough that we are hopeful that Ms. Gibson is alive.
Officially, police have yet to call Gibson a suspect, but sources confirm postpartum links are a focus of the investigation. In Canada, maternal filicide, mothers killing their children, is rare. Mothers taking their lives after, even rarer. And according to experts, not well understood.
I'm not sure that you can rationalize out how this happens. All it is that it's very serious and people do need to get care right away.
At a vigil for the family last night, many are trying to make sense of this through that lens of a woman that needed help.
We're trying to understand what happened and how she was feeling. And
I just want the family and Lisa to know that, we are not judging her, that we understand that things happen that we don't want to happen.
So far, Lisa Gibson's family has declined all comment as the search for her continues, now focusing on that fast-moving river. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Let's take a look at today's activity on the markets now. In Toronto, the TSX dropped 21 points to 12,647. The Dow edged up 3 points to 15,558. And the Nasdaq also up 3 points to 3608. The Canadian dollar fell 9/100ths to 97.34 cents US. Gold down $7 to $1,321 an ounce. And oil dipped 79 cents to $104.70 a barrel. been a great season for the Thunder Bay Chill as they've finished at the top of the PDFL standings, but boy, that's all a thing of the past now, isn't it?
Yeah, all kinds of pressure on the Chill. And remember, they were in this position last year, not at the top of the PDL, but as the #1 seed in the conference, and they lost their first playoff game. So, who knows?
Keep your
The
fingers crossed.
Chill coaches and players say they've learned from that experience, however, and head coach Tony Calistro has repeatedly said that this year's team is more talented than last year's club. In fact, he calls last season a rebuilding year, if you can believe it. Still, he acknowledges there is pressure that comes along with being the #1 seed and playing at home, but he feels his players are ready for that.
There's always going to be pressure. I mean, always a target on our backs, and this is some of the things that we've talked to the players a lot about, and having to play under pressure, and playing at home also adds a little bit of pressure as well. But it's what all the players are they prepare themselves for. So the pressure could be good. It definitely brings out the best out of some of the players, and hopefully Saturday we'll get that from them.
After being upset in this very same Central Conference semi-final last year by eventual PDL champion London, veterans like midfielder Dominic Roberts are itching to make things right this time around.
It's always been on my mind since we've lost last year. Haven't forgot about it ever since. I think it was a wake-up call, and now most of the veterans know we have to win.
When you come to the playoffs, it's just one game, and anything can happen in a game. And we saw that, and hopefully we can learn from that from last year and capitalize on every minute that we play on Saturday so we don't get into that position.
Now, all of this weekend's games have been moved to the artificial turf at Fort William Stadium. The field at Chapels is just too wet. That turf plays a bit faster than grass and could actually help the Chill given their attacking style. Perhaps it was leading scorer Sonny Omaregi who summed it up best, saying turf, grass, it doesn't matter. They're simply going to get the win. So very confident heading into the playoffs. To baseball now, where a pair of Border Cats will represent Thunder Bay at this year's Big League Dreams Showcase. The rosters, which are selected by a panel of Major League Baseball scouts, feature the top players from the Northwoods League. Infielders Kyle Hahn and Philip Lyons will get a chance to work out and also play a game in front of the scouts in Madison, Wisconsin. That all happens on Monday. Well, as any fan knows, you're not going to win many games without solid pitching. Maybe that's the reason it's been another season to forget for the Cats. They rank at or near the bottom of the league in nearly every statistical pitching category. As a team, the Border Cats have given up more runs, hits, and issued more walks than anybody else in the Northwoods League. Mike Albanese was at last night's game against Duluth.
After a 2-week absence, the Border Cats returned home to try and finish off the season strong against the Duluth Huskies. The weather wasn't exactly the best for baseball, but you know what they say, the show must go on. Top of the second, with a runner on second, Nick Satoff hits an RBI single and brings in Michael Suter to open up the game scoring 1-0. Next inning for the Huskies, they score again with Jared Meek on third. Connor Zerba grounds one out to the shortstop that brings in Meek to bring the game to 2-0. Top of the fourth, now no one scored this inning, but pitcher Jordan Church had an amazing catch to end the inning off of Meek's grounder. Top of the fifth, with Kyle Teef on third and Keith Curcio at first, Suter lines one out right field, bringing both runners home, increasing the total to 4-0 Huskies. Bottom of the fifth, the Border Cats show life when Philip Lyons blasts a home run, which turns out not to matter too much as the game soon after got called due to rain delays. The players didn't seem to mind, though, having a little fun with each other in the air bubble races. Coach Dan Holcomb says he would have liked to finish out the game.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I mean, when you have 4 at-bats left, Phil Lyons, had a great hit in the bottom of the fifth and, starting to get to their starter a little bit. It would have been nice to be able to finish those 4 innings and, have a chance to pull a little bit closer, especially when you have Zach Thiak on the mound.
Mike Albanese, TVD Sports.
To the links we go for round 2 of the Canadian Open, and what a round it was for the American John Merrick. He tied a course record today with a 10 under 62. That was last accomplished back in 1986 by a golfer named Greg Norman. Maybe you've heard of him. Merrick's short game, it was impeccable as we watch him drain one of his many birdie putts on 15. He also birdied 17 to move to 10 under for the tournament. And here he is to cap off his round on the par 5 18th. A nice wedge shot that almost hit the flag stick. So he had that left for birdie. And he pours it right into the cup to tie that course record. He now sits at 11 under, 2 strokes off the pace set by Hunter Mahan, who saves par at 14. He finished his round with 3 straight birdies. He's at 13 under. Mike Weir is the top Canadian. He's into the clubhouse with a 67, 4 under for the tournament. Well, Jared Stahl has taken a longer route to the NHL than any of his older brothers. Finally last year, after toiling away for 4 seasons in the minors, he made his way into the lineup of the Carolina Hurricanes. It was a memorable moment as the Stahl line took to the ice, made up of he and brothers Eric and Jordan. Matt Scooby now has more on what the 22-year-old is doing to try to stay with the big club.
Jared Stahl was preparing for the American Hockey League playoffs with the Charlotte Checkers when he got called into the coach's office.
We had a flight that afternoon to Oklahoma City, and I got a call to the coach's office, not sure what, maybe do video or something, and he ended up telling me I was going to go up and play the last 2 games of the season in Carolina, and it was kind of a surreal feeling, and I was really excited.
Waiting for him in Carolina were older brothers Eric and Jordan. After the coaching staff talked about it, they decided to put the 3 Stahls together to start the game. Jared calls it a cool moment, but it made him a little more nervous than he already was, but nothing some brotherly advice couldn't help with.
They're just kind of telling me to have fun and let's try to enjoy this and hopefully score some goals, which we never ended up doing, but they were just kind of keeping it relaxed and just try to soak in the moment because this is only going to happen once.
Last week, Stahl signed a 1-year, 2-way contract extension with the Hurricanes. He says he's been hard at work this summer to try and make the big club next season.
Train that much harder and just make an impression at camp. I think I can't go into training camp and just coasting through. I got to really put my best foot forward and make them notice me and where I want to stick up there.
The second-round pick in 2008 hasn't had a chance to talk with any of the coaching staff about what his role might be with the club. Whether he ends up back in the AHL or is able to make it all 4 Stahls in the NHL, he's going to continue to try and make an impression.
My plan is that I'm going in there to try to make the team. I don't know what their plan is. I'm going to do the best I can to hopefully make the squad, but I mean that's up to them. There definitely won't be any no effort from me, that's for sure.
Matt Scooby, TBT Sports.
Back to baseball, where the Toronto Blue Jays are hoping a series against the MLB's worst team will turn their season around. R.A. Dickey will be on the mound this evening for the second of a 4-game set with the Houston Astros. Mark Burley on the hill last night, and let me tell you, he was dealing. A season-high 9 strikeouts for the left-hander, 3 of them coming here in the top of the second as he strikes out the side. To the 4th we go. Edwin Encarnacion at the dish rips a line drive to right off Astros starter Canadian Eric Bedard. Jose Bautista motors in from first. He scores the first run of the game. Encarnacion is gunned down at third, trying to extend this one for a triple. He's credited with the RBI double, and the Jays are on the board. 7th inning, after 2 straight walks issued by Lucas Harrell, he faces Adam Lind at the plate, pinch hitting for Mark DeRosa, and Lind makes good. That's a 2-bagger off the top of the wall. Bautista scores for the second time, 2-0 Jays. Next up is Meiser Asturis. That's a base hit. Encarnacion and Lind come home as Toronto extends the lead to 4-0. Burley, meanwhile, still in the game in the 9th inning, looking for the complete game shutout, and he's got it. His first complete game of the season, giving up just 2 hits in the process. Boy, did the bullpen ever need that. The Jays snap a 7-game losing streak with the 4-0 victory. Meanwhile, in the CFL, the struggling Montreal Alouettes finally got right against the Edmonton Eskimos last night. They hung on to win 32-27 in a thriller.
All right. Thanks very much, Ryan.
All right, well, if you haven't had quite enough of the baby mania with the little British prince, Barry, stop rolling your eyes. Tonight we've got a special for you, and it's all part of our lineup. And with more, here's Teletalk.
Tonight on Global Thunder Bay, we're looking at all sides of the issue before making a recommendation. Starting at 8, it's Bones, and Brennan considers time travel as a possibility during an investigation. Then at 9 on Hawaii Five-0, the CEO of a successful company is murdered while surfing. And at 10, 16 by 9 takes a closer look at current affairs and the stories that affect Canadians. Over on CKPR Thunder Bay, we've got a true fairy tale and some horrifying nonfiction. At 8, what will life be like for Britain's new prince on William and Kate, A Royal Arrival? Then at 9, the Fifth Estate has the true story of how the CIA tracked the world's most wanted terrorist. Teletalk is brought to you by Points, the traffic ticket specialists.
Well, it feels like it was about a month ago, maybe even less, that Summer came to Thunder Bay.
All over now.
Yeah, looked at us, laughed in our faces, and now it's gone, eh, Fiona?
Well, I don't think it's gone. It's just taking a
feels like it.
rest, apparently. If we take a look at what has been going on or what is still yet to come, we are not expecting any real heat waves for a large portion of Canada and the most heavily populated areas for the first part of August. So don't expect a heat wave to return after this cool week that we've been experiencing. And unfortunately, late in August, well, it's our neck of the woods that is going to experience kind of a cool pocket of air. So it looks like August is not going to be much better than the last part of July. Now, we topped out with a high of 14. Temperatures dropped all day long to about 9 Celsius. But if we take a look at what other folks are dealing with, well, not too bad further west. We've got another sunny day for Vancouver and Prince George. Temperatures quite beautiful. Edmonton at 21. Calgary has definitely seen an improvement today. They topped out at 23 earlier, and a fair amount of sunshine. Regina still on the cool side, as is Saskatoon. Regina is currently at 17, and Winnipeg's matching that with a whole lot of gusty winds. As we head into southern Ontario, Toronto is currently at 22 and fairly sunny, But there's a lot of instability ahead for the weekend, possible thunderstorms for much of Saturday and even into Sunday. Meanwhile, Ottawa and up into the Montreal region, currently at 25, lots of sunshine and a little bit of humidex values, about 27, 28. Quebec City, partly cloudy there at 20. And Fredericton, wow, that is a lot of rain they are getting. This portion of New Brunswick is basically under a rainfall warning, and Fredericton could see up to 70 millimeters by about noon tomorrow. So there's been a lot of rain. They've had two choices, light rain or heavy rain, nothing else. So it's been quite consistent. Meanwhile, a lot of humidity in Charlottetown. They're currently at 25, but very muggy. Humidex feels closer to 34. And Halifax, although it says 22, they are actually having a humidex value at this point of 32. So a lot of humidity in that region. St. John's currently at 21. Humidex topped out at 37 this afternoon. So apparently the East Coast is the place to be if you want the heat. Now, if we take a look at what's been happening today, this low pressure center hovering over Lake Superior, kicking back a fair amount of precipitation today and will continue to do so tomorrow. It's slowly, very slowly, making its way, off you go. And so into Sunday, we're just at this tail end. So there's a slight risk of precipitation on Sunday, but the worst of it is expected to be tonight and tomorrow. So let's take a look at what's happening. Temperature-wise, single digits and mid to high single digits, about as good as it gets. Sault Ste. Marie also expecting a lot of rain over the weekend, especially tonight and tomorrow. And if you want sunshine, head up towards Red Lake. Not great temperatures, but they are expecting to see a little bit of sun tomorrow. Periods of rain everywhere else. At this hour, we're at 10 Celsius. Winds are still pretty gusty. We're not going to move a lot, low of 8. With anywhere from 10 to 20 millimeters of rain and a slight risk of a thunderstorm as we head into the weekend. On Saturday, cloudy to start by noon, about 12, and still gusty from the north up to 32 kilometers per hour, about 5 to 10 millimeters possible by the end of the day. And 14, well, that is our high for the day. We warm up to 19 by Sunday, which is great news because Thunder Bay Triathlon is on Sunday, and folks are going to be running around and cycling and swimming around the Boulevard Lake area, so 19 would be good news for them. Partly cloudy on Monday and a mix of sun and cloud on Tuesday. It looks like we're back to more seasonal values, so enjoy it while it lasts because August, not looking too good.
If you're looking for a little something different on the entertainment front this weekend, the Bay and Algoma Merchants Association is holding its first annual Valley Fresh Buskers Festival. Brett Hawley has details in tonight's edition of Front Row Center.
Well, hello, this is Front Row Center. I'm Brent Hawley, letting you know what's happening in the community of Thunder Bay. And this is an event we can all get excited about. It actually originated in Canada, at least down in Toronto. Buskers. Now, you know what a busker is. Those are those street performers. Now, they have a festival in Toronto on the streets, and it's your opportunity to kind of walk around and check it all out. Free entertainment all day long. They're doing that here in Thunder Bay in the Bay Algoma area. It's a 2-day event, and it's all kicking off tomorrow. They're going to have 8 stages strategically placed throughout that whole area, and you can go around and check out local performers. Actually, originally it was supposed to be local performers, but now we've got performers from all over the country. These are those street performers trying to make it big. Go on down there, check it out for yourself. Like I said, bring the family. It's free. Throw a couple of tips in the hat for them, though, because they're there for your benefits.
Front Row Center is brought to you by Teleco. We hear you at Teleco, your T-Bay Tel authorized dealer, 601 Central Avenue.
Okay, despite what Fiona says, there's still all sorts of fascinating stuff going on as far as the royal baby is concerned. For example, did you know that they finally figured out what they're going to do for babysitting when the Duke and Duchess need a break? We've got that for you right after these words.
Well, members of the royal family continue to meet the latest addition. Prince Harry, or as Uncle Harry as he's now known, has spoken about his first encounter with the newborn Prince George. The royal rogue has said he'll make sure his new nephew has, quote, fun growing up, but the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge want some time away. If they want some time away from the tot, Harry's services won't come cheap.
My brother knows how expensive my babysitting charges are.
Prince Harry's already held the new prince, who was apparently crying his eyes out when they first met. Despite the tears, the proud uncle says it's fantastic to have another addition to the family.
That's not a sign of things to come.
Yeah.
And please don't play billiards with Prince Harry. Let's recap our top story of the day for you now. City Council will get an update on the city budget, or state of the city budget, Monday night's meeting. And they're going to hear details of what expected to be a shortfall of $2.5 million.
Yeah, just a reminder, this weekend's soccer matchups, they will be at Fort William Stadium, not at Chapels Park, as it's too wet. And this evening's Border Cats game is still on as scheduled, however, 7:05 at Port Arthur Stadium. Go on out. It's Flyaway Friday. Win yourself a free trip.
And lots of rain tonight, more tomorrow, but hopefully by Sunday it could be on its way out. Cross your fingers.
That's all the time that we have for tonight. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow.